Hello, everyone. I'm Ashley, your host of Life After an Ego Death, and today's special guest is Rori Klein. Woo!
Hello.
So she returns for a second episode, and this one is really, really special because she wants to teach. And class is in session, guys. Get your notepads out. We are going to learn about pathworking, Dungeons and Dragons, and the theater of the mind.
Yeah, I mean, Ashley, if you had told 2016 Rory that one day she would be on a spiritual podcast talking about Dungeons and Dragons, whimsical witchcraft merit badges, and why those two things actually belong in the same conversation, I would not have believed you. But here we are, and I'm so excited.
I want to tell the audience, you guys, she has 5 pages of notes working on this lesson. So she is a professor, okay? And we are going to give her all of our attention and all of our respect. And thank you so much, teacher.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I don't do anything short form.
I love that.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay, perfect. So very recently, actually just a couple weeks ago at the Pisces new moon, two of my favorite hyperfixations, D&D and magic with a CK,
Mm-hmm.
stopped staying in separate corners of my brain, and they braided themselves together in a way that was just like a light bulb. It was like, duh. So I want to talk about pathworking. And I'm using the modern definition of pathworking here, not the Kabbalistic version, which is a topic for a completely separate episode. And through pathworking, it's entering an imagined world on purpose, both of them, D&D and pathworking.
Mm-hmm.
In D&D, we move through a shared story using role play, choice, consequences, and then in pathworking, we move through an inner landscape using guided imagery, sensation, and symbols. One is usually called a spiritual practice. The other is usually called a game, but both can really become ways of exploring the self through story. And for me, that's where they connected so naturally to shadow work and ego death. And that's why when that light bulb moment went off, I reached out to you. I'm like, I know exactly what I wanted to talk about.
This is going to be so good.
Yeah. It doesn't seem, when I was doing this research and talking about it and writing this all down, it doesn't feel accidental to me that I started playing D&D regularly around the same time that I dedicated myself to my magical journey. This
Mm-hmm.
all occurred in about 2017. That
Mm-hmm.
was also the beginning of a much deeper mental health journey for me. And in early 2018, I was actually hospitalized and then formally diagnosed with ADHD. Being a millennial AFAB person, that didn't occur until later in life, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And that experience was the beginning of my ego work, my ego death, so to speak. They tore away the first layers of the masks that I had been living behind. And again, looking back, it makes perfect sense that both D&D and pathworking became part of that process. They gave me literal and symbolic spaces to explore my identity, my fear, my grief over this diagnosis, uh, regaining power, and ultimately self transformation.
Mm. Wow.
Uh, yeah, so I've been pathworking for many years. Before I really like knew what pathworking was, it was suggested by some mental health professional to start listening to like guided meditations to help me go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, as I developed my spiritual practice, I incorporated that more into it. And I've also been playing, again, these are like completely separate realms in my life, so I thought. I've been playing D&D since I was very young. I started at the ripe old age of 11 with my stepsister and neighbor boy. And I've
Wow.
been a professional dungeon master since 2018. Uh, but again, it was only recently after facilitating a pathworking session for Weird Scouts on the Pisces new moon that those two things clicked, and that I realized I'd already been doing a related form of guided visualization for years as a dungeon master. I was already building these sensory worlds. I was already holding space for groups of people, guiding them through symbolic encounters. And so for me, this conversation is really about how role play can become a form of intentional spiritual exploration. And I want to pause here real quick, Ashley. How familiar are you with D&D?
Um, Not much. I've seen a movie about it, and I know about it as very, very, very little.
Gotcha. And that's totally valid, right? Most people are like D&D nerds.
I love fantasy though. Like I love fantasy and I love mythical creatures and like fairies and like I love the world and watching the movies on it and everything like that, but I've just never played games.
Yeah, yeah, totally valid. And not some people don't want to. You know, some people there's a lot of math. I'm just going to be very transparent. There's a lot of math.
Mm,
Some people don't think that their fun should, involve math and adding and subtracting things, and that's okay. Um, but in Dungeons and Dragons or shorthand D&D, there is a phrase often used called the theater of the mind. That refers to playing a scene primarily through spoken descriptions rather than relying on like maps, miniatures, pictures, visual aids, things like that. And I would like to give you an example to show you and the audience a little bit about how I operate as a dungeon master. The dungeon master is the person that is weaving the scene for the players to interact with. So I'd like to
mm,
give you that example.
mm-hmm,
So we're going to imagine that your character is traveling aboard a ship at night. The wooden hull groans and creaks around you. Your narrow cot sways beneath you as the waves strike the vessel in a steady rhythm. The smell of salt is in the air, and somewhere nearby a candle burns low, its flame throwing long, wavering shadows across stacked storage crates, coiled rope, and the curved boards of the cabin wall. Now, nothing is physically built in front of you, and yet through description alone, everyone at the table or everyone listening can now step into that same imagined world.
mm-hmm,
Yeah. And that is why D&D feels so closely related to pathworking for me, because pathworking also begins with a description. The pathworking facilitator invites you to picture what's around you, notice what appears, and move you through an experience inwardly in your mind's eye or theater of the mind. Even though nothing physical has changed around you, the, they're both using your imagination, it just
mm-hmm,
in slightly different ways.
mm,
Theater of the mind in D&D is often used to help players immerse themselves in the story, but really it's connecting them with their imagination. It's asking us to engage imagination in a meaningful way, asking us to treat these inner images, the emotional responses that we go through based off of the scenarios and the symbolic encounters as real parts of the whole gaming experience. And of course, the main difference between these two is intention. In D&D, the imagined space is usually framed as play and pathworking. It's a spiritual practice. But they're, I mean, to me, they seem strikingly similar. What do you think?
Hmm. Yeah, I think they're exactly the same.
Yeah. And then also want to like back up a little bit here, right? And say that it is completely valid to just play the game. Right? You don't have to you don't have to make Dungeons and Dragons game into a spiritual practice. You absolutely do not have to. Um, Not every player wants that. Some people really just want to escape the real world for, a couple hours and, role play as something else. And that's completely valid.
I think that this Earth school that we're on, it is all a dream. It is all a game that we're advancing levels on. And
Mhm.
it just, yes, intention is everything. And yeah, you can use that to escape, but I don't know. I think the way that you're intertwining all of this is just so useful for everyone to do in real life. This, your quote unquote role play, but that's the whole spiritual experience that we're having here when we wake up.
Mhm. I agree. I completely agree. Yeah, and that's why in both, in the Venn diagram of my work, what I like to do, um, they're both connected. And I feel really, really silly that I didn't connect these in my mind until literally a month ago. It's just like that light bulb moment of like, duh. As uh, when I created Wyrd Scouts, which is the with the merit badge system for the Scouts, I wanted to make room for practices that honor imagination as something real and useful in our spiritual journey and something that can be very accessible to beginners. And so one of the spirit badge paths that I created is named Pathworking and Visualization. And it was a very intentional choice. Uh, so I just, again, I felt really like, ah,
Hmm.
they click together.
It's
It
amazing
fully
to
formed that
have
gut.
these these aha moments, these epiphanies, these sharp mental clarity that just makes everything connect all the dots and everything click. And it's so electrifying and it's so amazing to experience you combine it all together so that we could see this and learn from it. And people write entire books on all this, right? They're like, everything that I learned came to this one aha moment. And people are like, okay, next. And you're like, whoa, hey, this is like the most profound thing that's happened to me. What do you?
Yep. Yeah. And that is something that I also addressed in my like personal ego work, personal I've gotten some pushback. I've been talking with my friends about, hey, what does ego death mean to you? Like being on your podcast has actually like helped me to open up conversations with some of the other spiritual people in my life. And one of them was like, oh, ego death seems so final. They're like, you can't, the ego can't die. And it created like a really long and very deep conversation between us that I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that term means the same thing to me that it is to you. And it seems like it's an
Hmm.
ongoing process. But the point that I was trying to make there, apologies, the ADHD is ADHDing, was that it's a chipping away at
Hmm.
the ego. And it's a
Hmm.
process and it's an ongoing process. And then you have that where you just have the spiritual, like this was the most intense thing that's ever happened in my life. And the person
Mm-hmm.
sitting next to you is like, and
Mm-hmm.
like, like they're living in their own personal universe and they have their own ego and they have
Mm-hmm.
their own mask and they have their own view of the world. And like that is part of the chipping away is realizing you are not the sun. You are not the center of your universe, you know, but everybody is the center of their own universe.
Yeah, and we all have responsibility of our universe. And what you've done with it, you've created a space. You've created so much, a whole community of people that are like-minded, that can bounce off of each other and learn and grow and expand together. And it's a cataclysmic event what you have done in your own universe, right? And that's what
Mhm.
I'm experiencing now. You've been doing this for a while now, but me, I'm pretty fresh to this because I am holding a community, this podcast and all the people that I'm meeting and everything. I'm like, whoa, I'm seeing the impact. I'm seeing the ripple effect. I'm seeing all of it in real time. I'm like, this is so incredible. What is everyone else doing with their universe, you know?
Yes. Yes. And it wasn't until recently that I applied that same logic to both of the communities that I was uh, a part of, the D&D, you know, tabletop role playing game community, and then also the spiritual community here, because you know, I was kind of treating it as, oh, that's my blow off time, you know, oh, I'm a dungeon master and I can just go have fun and I get to weave this game and then now once I stepped into a more professional role where I'm actually running paid games. And again, if you told me 10 years ago that I would be paid to run Dungeons and Dragons game, I'd be like, okay, this is like witchcraft is real. I made my real life. But you know, it
Mhm.
sometimes it's uh, the experience is meaningful because or the game, the D&D game is meaningful because your character was able to achieve a task that you've been working on for their entire story arc. And like this, it came to this like huge dramatic and like everybody around the table is cheering for you and like it's this amazing moment. Sometimes the time around the table is meaningful because you laughed so hard you cried while your party failed to open a door for 20 minutes. So like both of these are completely, you know, valid. You don't have to attribute this humongous spiritual, you know, meaning to gameplay, and you don't have to, you know, uh, put this huge meaningful experience on a spiritual practice either, but just showing up and experiencing it with like-minded people is just so profound and they both
Mhm.
matter. They're both
Yeah.
completely valid.
And it's because it's the energy that you bring into it, right? It's it's what you're doing because you really care about it, because you're devoted to it, because you love it, and because you put all this energy into it. Of course it would flourish. Of course you would get paid to do this. Like, of course all this would happen because you're so good at it. And no one can do it like you. Like, of course, like this all, when you're saying all this, I'm like, I'm sure it's super hard to be a master, right? I mean, like, it's so hard to achieve all these things, and you've done it, and it's because you care about it so much, right? And you're able to just, I guess it's like tend to your garden, like everything you touch it turns to gold, right? And it's just because of how much you're putting into it with everything in life. Every little thing that you
Yeah.
do, if you're just a passenger in your life, if you're just going on autopilot, nothing's going to happen to you. People are going to tr control your life for you, get on the driver's seat for you, do things for you. But you have really taken that driver's seat in everything that you do, and people are flocking to you. People are attracted to you. People are looking for you for what you have to give and what you have to offer because it is so valuable.
Thank you. Oh,
That was
wow. Just
that was a straight up channel. Like your spirit guides want you to know that because they were telling me this. They're like, "Hey, bow down to her." I was like, "Absolutely."
it's I've been I've been working recently to practice gratitude and to really be um sorry, that was very profound.
It was
um
beautiful. Just soak it up and
thank you.
we don't have to say anything like this
Okay.
experience itself. Um, right? You can just say the word grateful and that's it. And we're like, okay, this is good. But but yeah, it was a lot. I don't remember anything I said because it was a channel, right? So that was specifically for you.
Ah, wow. Um yeah. I do the over explaining thing. So that's why I'm like, I'm just gonna shut up. But thank you.
Oh, you know what is so funny? Is that so the episode I recorded before you, she literally was talking about her ADHD, like that ended up being the name of the episode. And someone be even before her was talking about neurodivergence and ADHD also. I was like, okay, this is just the theme of the week because I've been getting
Yep.
that's just been happening.
Yep. Yep. That overlap, that Venn diagram of people who see the world differently because of neurodivergence and then also see the world differently because of, opening up their third eye and ego work and spiritual work.
Right, right.
That's a circle.
It is.
It's
It
very often a real small circle.
It feels very big in my
Ah,
life. It feels huge. It feels like it's the whole circle because that's all I'm bringing in and it's amazing to learn from them because something I kind of picked up is that I think I'm neurotypical. Like I think I'm, pretty good about focusing and everything like that. But
mhm.
Matt, he was on the show. His video came up to me today, like just popped up, and he was talking about, it's so hard for neurodivergent people to like make what they do for fun a business and like, turn it into money because we're kind of done, like at the point where we're just having fun and doing it. And I resonate with that so much because I just want to have fun and play and just do what I love to do. And I don't even think past that, where I have to create a structure, where I have to make a business out of it and, all that stuff. I'm like, that's not fun. Like, I don't want to do any of that stuff. Like, that ruins it. And he was talking about that. He's like, well, I'm seeing a lot of people do it, so I know we'll get there. And I'm like, okay, I'm with you. I'm right there with you.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. So, little bit of backstory about me is that I call myself a small business development manager, right? And
Mm.
I do that where I go, like, that's part of my neurodivergence where I really like structure. And so
Mm.
I come, business owners come to me and they're like, I just want to do the fun stuff and I want you to
Mm-hmm.
do the annoying, tedious stuff. I'm like, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So
Whoa.
I helped launch several businesses, and that's why I have Weird Scouts as a professional DM. And there's been five or six other things that I'm like, how are all those connected? ADHD, that's how they're connected. But I've done this for clients now, and like I'm like rolling it out. I'm like, yeah, I'm calling myself a professional rather than just like I've got a lot of fingers in different pies. So
Yeah, you're so
it's so funny
talented.
to me. Well, thank you. But when I got the download from the universe about Weird Scouts, it literally was like, you do not have time to do this. I had been ignoring the signs from my spirit guides for months, months. And so they created a tower moment in my life where they're just like,
Mm-hmm.
boom, blow it up. You listen to us now. Good. This is what
Mm-hmm.
you got to do. And so I didn't develop any of those structures. I didn't develop any of this infrastructure, the systems, the automation, I did all the legal things, of course, that I needed to do. But I launched Weird Scouts in a matter of like 3 weeks. And so
Wow.
like now that I've kind of like slowed down a little bit, like ever since we had the spring equinox a couple weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago, I felt like I could take my foot of the off the pedal a little bit. I can go back in and develop these. So it's it makes me laugh because literally last night we had a meeting last night for the Libra full moon,
Mm-hmm.
and one of my scouts when we were leaving was like, hey, do you want me to pay you? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Yes, yes. Thank you for remembering. I would not have remembered because that's really bad. And I don't care, and I'm just here to have fun. But but
Mm-hmm.
but yes, yes, thank you. That is
Yeah.
really funny to me, where it's like, yeah, the spiritual people are having a really hard time monetizing, what we're good at doing. Like, yeah, I feel that so hard.
Yeah. Wow. This is amazing. Matt and I are coming to you for help then, and probably every guest speaker I've had on here and everyone who listens, they're going to be all over you because someone figured it out, and that's awesome. I'm so happy. And it just goes to show, like the multi-dimension, multi-talented, multifaceted, all of those, right? We're all of those. We're all of those. That's why it's so natural for us to be so good at so many things and we wear so many hats and we do so many different types of things and it's we can't just put ourselves into a label and a box. We can't do any of that because yes, we're all one and within all of that is encompassing everything.
Yeah, I agree. I actually like in my notes, I wrote, we're wearing many different hats, but sometimes when we look at it, it's the same hat. And that's like how I
Mm-hmm.
saw this path working. You're just like, oh, I didn't realize that those things were related, but they actually are. So
Yeah,
the path working and the shadow work and the ego death and how all of this is actually
it's all
the same.
connected. Mm-hmm. It is. It is all interconnected. It is all oneness. All these different paths, all these different avenues, it all goes, all the streams, all the rivers, they go to one ocean.
Very much so. Yes.
And that's how we're able to connect with everyone and relate to everyone and every living thing. And that's why I say like this podcast is E for everyone. Like, it doesn't matter what we talk about. It doesn't matter, you know, what type of topics come up or anything. It's all flow and it's all love and it's all truth. It's all wisdom. It's all compassion. It's all coming from the right place. It's all coming from the right source. And it's just all goodness.
Yeah, I agree. But again, if you had asked 10 years ago, Rory, to do that, I would have thought that you had grown a literal third eye on your head. And I've been like looking at you like, what are you talking about? So
We
I
did.
I wanted to we did indeed. But for people who are just starting out on this journey or people that, don't know what they don't know, I love that term. Don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to bring up something else that I think is extremely beneficial and why I like to talk, D&D to people of all lifestyles, because Dungeons and Dragons, fantasy, imagination, play, all of the, whatever term you want to use, it gives people a lower stakes space to try something new and to be
Mm-hmm.
able to experience failure in a
Mm-hmm.
fictional setting, an imaginative setting. Um, and like
Mm-hmm.
mental health professionals have actually started using tabletop role-playing games like D&D in therapy settings because sometimes it is easier to address your fear of failure when technically you're talking about your half-elf warlock making questionable choices in a cursed forest.
Mm.
And um, and I want to be very careful, right? I'm not a therapist. I'm not offering therapy through role play. I actually set boundaries with my players, saying like, "Hey, this may stir up some things." I don't typically play when I do campaigns, long-term campaigns. They're not light and fluffy, bunny unicorns, which
Mm-hmm.
there is almost always a bunny unicorn. But anyway, I'm not offering therapy through role play.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it shows that guided imagination, character work, symbolic storytelling, these can have real emotional depth and practical value for experienced spiritual practitioners, for people new onto the path, for someone who is just wanting to try something out and doesn't know where they fit, doesn't, if they're skeptics. I think
Mm-hmm.
that just playing it, having fun, and imagining something fantastical and amazing is
Mm-hmm.
so beneficial to starting on that spiritual deconstructing journey.
Wow. That is so true because people do come up to me and they're like, well, I'm afraid to start or I'm afraid to fail or just like all these things that you're talking about. Like, wow, this is a good avenue for me to send them to start practicing there and start working there because I just tell them, I'm like, hey, I'm not ready either. I just do it because I'm not ready. And, if I wait till I'm ready, I'll never be. And I'm like, I just do it anyway. And that is really bold and courageous. And, I take off all the pressure off of myself and I don't worry about failing, I just worry about growing. And that's
Mhm.
part of the process. I trust that I'm going to grow and expand and be the person I need to be once I completed that task, like, you know, and once I'm doing it, I have to be doing it in order for it to happen and allowing that. And that scares them, right? And so
Mhm.
this is really great. This is really awesome. And I'm glad you mentioned that. So now everyone knows like a place where they could take off the pressure and practice a rehearsal before they do it in real
Yes,
life.
exactly. Yep. In D&D, there is this concept called failing forward. And so to some people that are like, just to give a little bit of an explanation, when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you're rolling dice, and based off of the number on the dice, there's some other factors in there. You're either succeeding or failing or something in between.
Mm,
And so there's a concept called failing forward, and I apologize, I do not know which of the great, dungeon masters came up with it, but I love it, and I have implemented it into my games because when you roll a one on a 20-sided die, a one is almost always a failure between 1 and 20, right? 20 is success, 1 is failure. So when your character is trying to do something and you're like, oh man, I really want to do this. I really want to, pick this lock. I really want to shoot this arrow. I really want to jump on over this table. And you roll a one, you can just see this like crestfallen expression on the player's face when they're like, I failed. And it's okay. Like failing is okay, but I like to implement you succeeded, but it just didn't turn out how you wanted it to. It
mm-hmm.
didn't it the outcome wasn't entirely what you were expecting. So you're failing forward. And I feel like that also, applies to um, spiritual work and witchcraft and spell work specifically,
Mm-hmm.
where if you're raising energy, you're doing something, something is going to happen. It
Mm-hmm.
may not be entirely what you expected,
Mm-hmm.
but,
Mm-hmm.
but you're failing forward. And so that's why I really like implementing the failing forward idea into my games, where it's just like, nope, you didn't do it, move on. No, that doesn't work. That's not how real life works. So we should fail forward and be able to accept that outcome of, well, it wasn't exactly what I intended, and that's okay.
Mic drop. I think that was a perfect way to end it. That was amazing.